This is my first video update coming to you from Nicosia, Cyprus on this Monday morning. Let's talk about some news. And we have some breaking news this Monday. That we have a repeat of what happened on December 5th in the Engels Air Base, at the Engels Air Base in the Saratov region, deep inside of Russian territory. We have once again a drone, a Ukrainian drone, being shot down over the airbase, over Engels Air Base in Russia. This is an air base. This is probably the most important air base for the Russian Federation, and this unmanned drone was spotted by Russian air defense over the air base. It was shot down, but the debris did manage to lead to the death of 3 Russian soldiers at the airbase. The reports coming from the Russian Ministry of Defense claim that no aircraft was damaged, but there are 3 casualties from the drone debris that was shot down by Russian air defense systems. This is a repeat of what happened on December 5th. I believe it was December 5th when the Ukraine military sent out a drone towards the Engels Air Base. And once again, the Russian Ministry of Defense claimed that they shot that drone down, but the debris did lead to the death of 4 Russian soldiers, I believe 4 or 5 Russian military personnel, as well as damaging to aircraft in that incident in early December. So we have a repeat of what happened just a couple of weeks ago. Once again, the Ukraine military sending a drone deep inside of Russian territory, targeting the same air base they targeted in early December, the Engels Air Base. And this air base is a good 650, 700 kilometers east of the border with Ukraine. So the Ukraine military, they snuck in a drone once again to go all the way towards the Saratov region in Russia. So that appears to be what the Ukraine military is fixated on, which is striking at this air base, this Engels Air Base in Russia. It looks like they have this air base in their mind, on their brains to hit this air base. Obviously, striking at this air base, successfully striking at this air base, would probably give them a good PR, media optics win. It doesn't change anything with regards to the actual trajectory of the conflict, but I imagine if they can successfully get a drone to hit the airbase, well, then they could spin that off into some sort of media victory. So that is the breaking news coming from this conflict between Ukraine and Russia. Now let's talk about Putin's interview to Russia 1 that he gave the other day. And in this interview, Putin said this with regards to the special military operation to the conflict in Ukraine. He said, quote, "We are ready to negotiate with everyone involved about acceptable solutions, but that is up to them. We are not the ones refusing to negotiate. They are." So now the Collective West media, they picked up on this quote from Putin, and they're spinning it as some sort of admission from the Russian president that Russia is ready to throw in the towel. They're looking for an off-ramp. They're ready to negotiate. The Russian president has finally come to the understanding that Russia won't be able to achieve its goals. It will not be able to achieve what it's looking to do. It's running out of weapons, and it's suffering heavy losses. And so Vladimir Putin is finally admitting that Russia is ready to negotiate. And this is a terrible misunderstanding, maybe a deliberate misrepresentation misreporting of what Putin is saying in this interview to Rossiya 1. Putin also said, by the way, he said, I believe that we are acting in the right direction. We are defending our national interests, the interests of our citizens, our people, and we have no other choice but to protect our citizens. So he also said that during the interview. But the fact that Putin is saying we are ready to negotiate, he's not deviating from Russia's policy with regards to the conflict in Ukraine. This is the policy that they've had from day one of this conflict. Actually, it even predates the conflict. Russia has always taken the position of negotiations, whether it was negotiating Minsk I, Minsk II, whether it was negotiating Ukraine's neutrality. Russia has always taken the position that we need to negotiate with the collective West, and we are open to negotiate with the collective West. And throughout the conflict, the Russian government's position has always been, we are open to negotiations. The Russian government has always said, we want negotiations, but without conditions, without preconditions. And the Ukraine government's stance has been, yeah, we're ready to negotiate, but we have these 10 conditions before we actually sit at the table with the Russians. So you have two very different positions. The Russians are saying, we want to negotiate, but let's not come into this with a long list of what we want. Let's sit at the table and work this out. And the Ukrainian side has said, we're not going to sit at the table until you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 things. Move out of Crimea, move out of Donbass. Putin has to resign. Tribunals, 700 billion in reparations and reconstruction money. Once you do all of these 10 things, then we'll sit down and negotiate. So you can see the two very different positions between both governments. And plus you have the fact that Ukraine really isn't the side that is calling the shots anyway. They don't really have the power to negotiate because they're not the ones that are running this conflict. They're not the ones that are running this show. And that is what Putin means when he says we are ready to negotiate with everyone involved. That's an important couple of words in this statement. We are ready to negotiate, not with Kiev, not with Ukraine, not with Zelensky. We are ready to negotiate with everyone involved. It's Putin's way of saying we're ready to negotiate with NATO, the United States, the collective West. Yeah, everybody that is waging this war against us, we're ready to negotiate with all of you. Otherwise, Putin would have said we're ready to negotiate with the Zelensky regime. We're ready to negotiate with the Ukraine government. But he says we are ready to negotiate with everyone involved about acceptable solutions. So this statement from the Russian president has been misinterpreted by the collective West media, maybe out of their ignorance for reporting on the Russian president and on Russia. Most likely it's deliberate, but either way, they're misinterpreting what the Russian president said during this interview. It's actually a statement of policy consistency, not of policy deviation or surrender. This is a statement that Russia has been making from the beginning of the military operation, which is one of negotiations, and very much in line with Clausewitz's writings and his doctrines, which is that the military solution complements and runs alongside, runs in parallel with a political solution. You don't stop one to begin the other, according to Clausewitz. Both the military and the diplomatic, they run side by side. They move along together to provide a solution to these things. So the Russian president, he also said in this interview that NATO is waging a proxy war against Russia, and they are using Ukraine as a pawn. Putin said that the West is attempting to tear apart Russia, quote, at the core of it all is the policy of our geopolitical opponents aiming to tear apart Russia, the historical Russia. They have always tried to divide and conquer. Our goal is something else, to unite the Russian people. So that is another statement that Putin made to Rossiya 1 during this interview. Statements like this do not point to the fact that Putin is coming to the understanding that that he needs to surrender or needs to negotiate with the collective West, or else. Statements like this, where he says that it's their goal to tear Russia apart. So for us, this conflict, this is existential to our citizens, to the historical Russia, to the cultural Russia. This is an existential threat. This is an indication that Putin, while understanding that that negotiations would be preferable, a diplomatic solution would always be preferable, Russia has to fight, and they have to fight for their very existence. So that is what Putin said to Rossiya 1. On Thursday, Putin said that our goal is not to spin this flywheel of a military conflict, but to the contrary, to end this war. This is what Putin said on Thursday. I believe this was at the Defense Ministry event. And the State Department, they came out with a statement saying that the Russian president is finally, belatedly, acknowledging reality. That is what the State Department is saying. They say that since February 24th, the United States and the rest of the world knew that Putin's special military operation was an unprovoked and unjustified war against Ukraine. Finally, after 300 days, Putin called this war what it is. So he actually used the term war. And he's actually, him and Shoigu, I believe they have used the term war over the past couple of weeks. They've actually added that word in there. Instead of SMO, Special Military Operation, they've been saying the word war every now and then. And the State Department is actually happy about this. They're actually happy at the fact that the Russian government is starting to use the word war. They're saying, you see, we told you so. We told you so. This was always a war from day one. Once again, I think first of all, I don't understand. I think they're misinterpreting what the Russian government is saying, but I think they're being happy about something that they shouldn't be happy about. I don't understand why they're happy about this. This is, if anything, this is the Russian government saying, well, now the gloves are off. Yeah, it was a special military operation. Maybe it still remains a special military operation for now. But this is turning into a war, and if Russia is going to fight a war, well, then that's not something that the State Department should be happy about. I don't understand why they're rejoicing over the fact that Putin is using the word war every now and then in the statements that he's making. But once again, I think they're misunderstanding what Putin is saying. I think that Putin is acknowledging the fact that this is moving from an SMO to a war. And as they focus on Donbass, which is what the Russian military is focusing on, as they focus on what they need to do in Donetsk and Lugansk, well, then the SMO could very well end, and this could become a war if this continues. And I think that would be the last thing that Ukraine, NATO, the State Department would want. Notice what Putin says here. Notice the words that he uses in this statement. Our goal is not to spin this flywheel of a military conflict, but on the contrary, to end this war. When I think of the term flywheel, to spin the flywheel, I think of like something that's spinning, 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 and it's gathered enough momentum that, there's no stopping it. That's what I get when I listen to this statement. Our goal is not to spin this flywheel. In other words, look, we're not looking to escalate and to ramp things up to the point of no return. What we want to do is we want to end this thing. But if we need to spin this flywheel, Putin's saying, if we need to spin this flywheel, or if this flywheel is going to spin, then look out. It's not what we're striving for, but if the momentum dictates it, well, then things are going to ramp up, and it's something that Ukraine and the collective West should not want to have happen. Very interesting use of words. Our goal is not to spin this flywheel of a military conflict, but on the contrary, to end this war. This is what we are striving for. We're striving to end this conflict. We're striving to get a diplomatic solution, an acceptable diplomatic solution, which accepts the realities on the ground. But if the collective West continues to escalate and continues to spin this flywheel to the point where the momentum takes over, well then, we're going to do what we need to do to fight for our very existence. So that is the interview that Putin gave to Russia 1. Now we have a document from the German Defense Ministry, and this is being reported on by Swiss media. This is interesting. This is an interesting document, so let me pull this up here. Switzerland's New Zürcher Zeitung has reported that the German Defense Ministry has come up with a document, a prognosis, a case study as to the options ahead of Russia in this conflict. They're wargaming it. They've come up with a document which wargames Russia's two potential options going forward in this conflict. And the first option, the first prediction from the German Defense Ministry, according to this document reported on by Neue Zürcher Zeitung, is that Russia will focus on conquering the entire Donbass region. That is the first prediction being made by the German Defense Ministry. They say that a supposed offensive is expected to begin in April of 2023, with Belarusian President Lukashenko simultaneously deploying his troops near Ukraine's northern border, while Minsk's forces are unlikely to actually move into Ukraine. The German ministry says that this maneuver would ensure that Kiev would not be able to use all of its military to counter the Russian offensive in Donbass. So that is the first prediction that this German Defense Ministry document is making. That's the most likely outcome, they say, as to what Russia will be doing in this conflict going forward in 2023. Focus on Donbass, that's correct, and use the forces in Belarus to keep the Ukrainian forces in Kiev pinned down in check as Russia liberates, as they take over Donetsk and Lugansk, all of Donetsk and Lugansk, and they make all of Donetsk and Lugansk whole. So that is the option number one. Now the second scenario from this German Defense Ministry document, and this is the less likely scenario, but they're still putting it out there, is the conquest of all of Ukraine. According to the German military's supposed prognosis, Russian forces would strike in the south from Donbass, while up to 70,000 Belarusian troops would cross the Ukrainian border in the north and march on Kiev. Moscow's military would allegedly aim to secure Ukraine's border with Poland to stop the flow of Western weapons into the country and to seize Moldova's breakaway Transnistria region. However, to pull this off, Russia would need to declare a total mobilization. This, though, is rather unlikely for internal political reasons, the German military analysts cited by Nur Zucher-Zütton are thought to have surmised. So, those are the two scenarios that the German Defense Ministry is outlining in this document. I tend to agree with the first scenario. I think the first scenario is the most likely. I actually think it's a scenario that the Russian military has pretty much telegraphed as well. I mean, they've been kind of open about it. They're going to focus on Donbass. That's what they're going to be doing for the first part of 2023. Now, of course, there's a lot of speculation about those forces in Belarus and what they're going to be doing. Are they going to be moving south to strike at Kiev? Are they going to cut off the transfer of weapons from the west to the east on the front lines? Speculation. There's a lot of speculation and analysis as to what those forces are going to do, but I tend to agree with the defense ministry in Germany, which is that those forces are there to protect Belarus, and more importantly, to act as a deterrent force and to keep the Ukraine military on their toes, especially in the Kiev region. So anyway, I thought I would get that assessment from the German Defense Ministry out there to everybody. With that being said, let's do a clown world and wrap this video up. And in this clown world, we have the Belensky court jester, Mr. Arestovich, speaking out about Western support for Ukraine, or perhaps a lack of Western support for Ukraine. And Arestovich, in a TV interview, he finally came to the admission that the U.S. will most likely screw, those are his words, screw Ukraine in 2023. He said maybe they will screw us with financing, but not in 2023, but later. Okay, not in 2023, but later. Then we will be fighting with only machine guns. Okay, so they're going to support him. Arestovich is saying that the U.S. is going to support the Zelensky regime through 2023, and then once 2023 comes to an end, then they're going to screw the Zelensky regime. And I guess the clown world statement from Arestovich is, we will be fighting with only machine guns. I think that's he's kind of lost touch with reality there, but he's probably right on. Most of 2023, I can see the Bidenopolis White House doing everything they can, and the European Union doing everything they can in order to support Ukraine for as much of 2023 that they can. And then eventually, as the year drags on, I could easily see the Biden White House, the Pentagon, NATO saying we're out of weapons. I don't think they're going to drop Ukraine out of a desire to want to drop Ukraine, or as Arestovich puts it, to screw Ukraine. I just think that the collective West is just simply running out of weapons. It's simple math. I think the Pentagon's going to be like, we have no more weapons, guys. You know, the EU countries are already starting to throw in the towel. And so as 2023 drags along, you know, they're one by one, the collective West countries are going to be tapping out. They're just going to be tapping out. And eventually, you're going to be left with the United States. And sooner or later, the Pentagon, some rational minds, rational heads in the Pentagon are going to say, yeah, this is over. Our stockpiles are getting dangerously low for our own national security, so we have to tap out. Now, fighting the Russian military with machine guns, well, that's Adistovich for you. Those are the clownish statements that Adistovich is famous for. That is why we call him the court jester of the Zelensky regime. Anyway, that is the video, everybody. TheDuran.locals.com. We are also on Rockfin as well. And go to the Duran shop, 10% off. Use the code GOODDAY. Take care.